A very good afternoon to you from the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt. This is ATN International News for today. To begin, let's take a look at the biggest stories making the headlines. Police fires tear gas at protesters in Maputo. Mysterious illness kills several people in Sudan. Biden urges Americans to remain calm after Trump's win. Trump picks Susie as chief of staff. 3 charged in connection with Payne's death. Thailand to pursue new policies to boost technology. Israel to collect soccer fans after anti-Semitic attacks. These and more stories to come your way in a moment. Do stay with us. We are open for adverts, placements, news and events coverage, personality, society and political interviews, products, service promotion and commercials. You can connect with us on all our ATN socials, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, Twitter at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. And now the details. We delve into Africa. Mozambican police fired tear gas at thousands of protesters in the capital Maputo on Thursday during the biggest demonstration yet against the long-ruling Frelimo party, which was declared the winner of a disputed election last month. Anger has mounted since election authorities said Frelimo had won the October 9th vote, extending its 49-year rule. Human rights groups say at least 18 people have been killed in the police crackdown on protests since then. The election was hotly contested, with many young people supporting independent candidate Venancio Mondlane, who says the vote was rigged and encouraged demonstrations. Protesters chanted "Power to the people" and "Frelimo must fall," and some blockaded streets with running tires and held homemade signs supporting Mondlane. Adriano Novonga, director of Mozambique's Center for Democracy and Human Rights, said the country had never seen such large demonstrations. Civil society groups and recent observers also said the election was unfair and that results were altered. A Frelimo spokesperson did not respond to requests for comment. The party has been accused of vote rigging in previous polls and has denied it. This sparked smaller protests last year. President Felipe Nyusi has not spoken since the protests escalated. His defense minister has threatened to deploy the army and warned against attempts to grab power. Mozambique's Constitutional Council has not yet certified the election results, a process that usually takes around 2 months. On Tuesday, it ordered the Electoral Commission to clarify within 72 hours why there had been discrepancies in the number of votes counted in the presidential, legislative and provincial elections, according to a letter seen by newsmen. An Electoral Commission spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Many Mozambicans have expressed frustration at lack of economic opportunities while the country is rich in natural resources. Total Energies and ExxonMobil are both developing billion-dollar gas projects in its far north that have been halted by an Islamist insurgency. South Africa has closed its main border crossing for security reasons, and its foreign ministry advises citizens against all but essential travel to Mozambique. South African logistics company Grindrod on Thursday said it had suspended port and terminal operations in Mozambique. At least 73 people have died of mysterious disease caused in Sudanese town of Al-Hilaliya, besieged by the paramilitary rapid support forces. The Sudanese Doctors Union said late on Wednesday that it is one of dozens of villages that have come under attack in eastern Al Jazeera state since the defection of a top RSF commander to the army, which prompted revenge attacks that have displaced more than 135,000 people. The war between the two forces have has created the world's largest humanitarian crisis, displacing more than 11 million and plunging more into hunger, while drawing in foreign powers and prompting fears of state collapse. While high death tolls in other parts of Jazeera came as a result of RSF shelling and gunfire. In Hilaliyah, people have fallen ill with diarrhea, overwhelming a local hospital, according to the union, and 3 people from the area. A network blackout enforced by the RSF has made it difficult to determine the exact cause. One man who spoke to newsmen said 3 of his family members had died of the same illness, but he only found out days later when others escaped to an area with internet access. Those who wish to leave must pay high sums at RSF's checkpoints, said another man, according to pro-democracy activists. The siege began on October 29 when the RSF raided the town, killing 5 and surrounding residents inside 3 mosques. Hilaliyah is home to the family of defected Commander Abu Akla Gilkal, which locals say may explain the siege of a previously stable trade hub that had housed 50,000 people, including many displaced from other areas. The town's markets and warehouses were looted, witness said. Satellite imagery from a Yale humanitarian lab report showed rapid increase in cemeteries in several Jazeera towns since the latest revenge attacks began in late October. It also showed evidence of the burning of agricultural fields in the village of Azraq. South Africa has temporarily closed its main border crossing with Mozambique over safety concerns. Its border authority said on Wednesday as protests against last month's disputed election in Mozambique continued to escalate. At least 18 people have been killed in the protest, according to human rights groups, as opposition supporters demonstrate against what they say is a fraudulent election won by Frelimo, the party that has ruled Mozambique since 1975. Security forces have responded with tear gas and live ammunition, while the government has restricted internet access and threatened to deploy the army. South Africa has closed the Limpopo port of entry in its Mpumalanga province after receiving reports of vehicles being touched on the Mozambican side. The authorities said in an emailed statement to newsmen. A reporter for South Africa's public broadcaster posted a video on X showing a long line of trucks, which he said stretched for kilometers waiting to cross the border. The latest protests in Mozambique are part of a week of demonstrations called by presidential candidate Venancio Mondlane, who came second in official results for the October 9 election, claims to have won. The Electoral Commission has declined to comment on allegations of fraud, and Frelimo has not replied to requests for comment. The protests are set to culminate in a march on the capital Maputo on Thursday. Mozambique's Defense Minister Cristóvão Chume said on Tuesday that the military was ready to intervene and warned against attempts to grab power. Mozambican Center for Democracy and Human Rights says that 24 people had been killed due to police violence. Human Rights Watch researcher Zenaida Machado told newsmen that she had verified 18 deaths so far, but believed there had been more. The Interior Minister has defended the police response, saying the protests were violent and that security forces were compelled to restore public order, which resulted in deaths. Britain's Prime William visited a fishing community in Cape Town on Thursday, the final day of a climate-focused trip to South Africa planned around his multi-million-dollar environmental prize. Launched in 2020, the Earth Short Prize aims to find innovations to combat the world's biggest environmental problems. On Wednesday, 5 winners were awarded £1 million each to drive their projects. Prince William shook hands with crowds during a visit to Kalk Bay Harbor, where he met local fishermen who told him about their sustainable fishing methods. He said he had been drenched by a large wave on a boat trip from an earlier meeting with lifesavers from South Africa's National Sea Rescue Institute. A small group of about 3 anti-monarchy protesters, outnumbered by well-wishers, shouted out, "Not your country." One held aloft a placard reading, "William, you have no sovereignty in our country. The heir to the British throne later joined celebrities who took part in Wednesday's award ceremony, including supermodel Heidi Klum and actor Billy Porter for a traditional fish fry, a local term for a grilled meal similar to a barbecue. U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday, the 7th of November, after Republican Donald Trump's election victory, called on Americans to lower the temperature and sought to pressure Democrats who were worried about the former president's stunning comeback. Some Democrats have accused the 81-year-old Biden in Harris' defeat. He gave up on re-election in July after a disastrous televised debate with Trump drew criticism. Failure is inevitable. Giving up is unforgivable, Biden said in the White House Rose Garden, addressing staff who were disappointed by the defeat of Vice President Kamala Harris. Biden said Tuesday's election proved the integrity of the U.S. electoral system and promised an orderly and peaceful transfer of power, implicitly rebuking Trump, who sought to overturn his 2020 defeat to Biden, and also made baseless allegations of fraud during this year's campaign. Biden invited Trump to a meeting at the White House. Trump did not offer Biden one in 2020, and the Trump campaign announced that he would return. Some Democrats worried that his loss meant that the values left-leaning, socially liberal, were now in the minority among Americans. Others were frustrated with the leadership of the party, which they felt had lost touch with voters who want help in tackling the high cost of living. Biden did not comment on his role in the elections or on the criticism of his party members. He has repeatedly said that he ran in 2020 to restore the soul of America after Trump's chaos. Instead, Biden's legacy will now be booked with a Republican comeback. President-elect Donald Trump announced late on Thursday that his campaign co-chair, Susie Wiles, will serve as his White House Chief of Staff come January, the first woman to ever hold that position. Wiles is known as a formidable political operative who prefers to work behind the scenes rather than on camera. Trump asked her to come to the microphone when he declared victory early on Wednesday morning. But she declined, preferring to stay out of the spotlight. Wiles has managed to not just carry but more critically keep Trump's favor while working in a high-profile campaign role, managing the ambitions, personalities, and egos in Trump's orbit. Wiles used to work for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, helping secure the governor's office for him. But DeSantis' relationship with her soured, and Trump world brought her into the fold. Wiles helped Team Trump defeat a former boss in the Republican primaries, whilst father was the late Pat Summerall, a famous sports broadcaster, now 67 years old. Wiles has worked in behind-the-scenes roles, shaping and grinding politicians in Florida for 4 decades. The Chief of Staff role is a demanding one that involves managing the president himself, in addition to senior White House staff, and by extension, the hundreds of people who work in the West Wing. But it also involves mapping out and executing the president's policy objectives, ambitions, and legacy. Trump had 4 chiefs of staff during his first term and parted in some of them on uncomfortable terms. Trump's longest-serving White House Chief of Staff, John Kelly, said during the campaign that Trump meets the definition of a fascist and warned against a second Trump term. Rein's pre-boss, Mark Meadows, and Mick Mulvaney also served in the role, although Mulvaney was only ever an acting Chief of Staff. Racist text messages invoking slavery raised alarm across the country this week after they were sent to black men, women, and students, including middle schoolers, prompting inquiries by the FBI and other agencies. The messages are sent anonymously were reported in several states, including New York, Alabama, California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee. They generally used a similar tone but varied in wording. Some instructed the recipients to show up at an address at a particular time with your belongings, while others didn't include a location. Some of them mentioned the incoming presidential administration. It wasn't yet clear who was behind the messages, and there was no comprehensive list of where they were sent. But high school and college students were among the recipients. The FBI said it was in touch with the Justice Department on the messages, and the Federal Communications Commission said it was investigating the text alongside federal and state law enforcement. The Ohio Attorney General's office also said it was looking into the matter. Tasha Dunham of Lodi, California, said her 16-year-old daughter showed her one of the messages one Wednesday evening before her basketball practice. The text not only used her daughter's name, but it directed her to report to a plantation in North Carolina where Dunham said they've never lived. Jared Kushner, son-in-law of U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, will not return to the White House, the Financial Times reported on Friday. Kushner could advise on Middle East policy, the report said, citing people familiar with the matter. U.S. judge rules against Biden legalization program for immigrant spouses. U.S. judge in Texas on Thursday ruled against President Joe Biden's program, offering a path of citizenship for certain immigrant spouses of U.S. citizens, a blow that could keep the program blocked through Biden's final months in office. U.S. District Judge J. Campbell Becker found a program which offers the path to citizenship to around 500,000 immigrants who enter the U.S. illegally if they are married to U.S. citizens, exceeded Biden's executive authority. The initiative, known as Keeping Families Together, launched in August but was blocked days later by Becker, who left it frozen while he considered a legal challenge brought by Texas, the coalition of U.S. states with Republican attorneys general. Biden, a Democrat, announced the program in June before dropping out of the presidential race and paving the way for Vice President Kamala Harris to face Republican Donald Trump, an immigration hardliner. The Biden administration could appeal Thursday's court's ruling. The White House did not immediately respond to requests for comment. United Nations has been planning for the possible return of Donald Trump and the courts to U.S. funding and engagement with world bodies that are likely to come with his second term as president. There was a sense of deja vu and some trepidation at the 193-member world body, said one senior Asian diplomat, as Republican Trump won Tuesday's U.S. election over Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris. There is also some hope that a transactional administration will engage the UN on some areas, even if it were to defund some dossiers. After all, what's bigger and better global stage is there than the United Nations, said the diplomat, speaking on condition of anonymity. A U.S. retreat adds the UN could open the door for China, which has been building its influence in global diplomacy. Trump has offered a few specifics about foreign policy in his second term, but supporters say the force of his personality and his peace through strength approach will help bend foreign leaders to his will. He's vowed to solve the war in Ukraine and is expected to give strong support to Israel in its conflicts with Hamas and Hezbollah in Gaza and southern Lebanon. Among the top concerns at the UN are whether the United States will decide to contribute less money to the world body and withdraw from key multinational institutions and agreements, including the World Health Organization and the Paris Climate Agreement. U.S. funding is the immediate worry. Washington is the UN's largest contributor, with China second, accounting for 22% of the core UN budget and 27% of the peacekeeping budget. A country can be up to 2 years in areas before facing the possible repercussion of losing its General Assembly vote. Trump readies to name fearless conservative judges, and second-term Republican President-elect Donald Trump is poised to build on his legacy of reshaping the federal judiciary, with nominees who his allies and opponents predicts could be even more conservative than the near record 234 judges he put on the bench in his first stint in office. Masked men attacked two students who were demonstrating in support of Israel at Chicago's DePaul University on Wednesday, resulting in minor injuries and raising concern about potential anti-Semitism on the Catholic campus. The university said it was working with Chicago police to determine if the assault was a hate crime. Violence against Jewish and Palestinian Americans has surged across the country, the 13th month since the militant group Hamas attacked Israeli and Israel's subsequent assault on Hamas-governed Gaza. One of the victims, who was a former member of the Israel Defense Forces, who was wearing a sign identifying him as such and inviting conversation, said Josh Wiener, a co-founder of the Chicago Jewish Alliance, who said he knows both victims and had spoken with them since the incident. University President Robert Manuel said the students received minor injuries and declined medical treatment. "We are outraged that these occurred on our campus," he said. "We recognize that for a significant portion of our Jewish community, Israel is a core part of the Jewish identity. Those students and every student should feel safe on our university campus." Manuel said it in a letter to faculty, staff, and students. Chicago police have charged a 22-year-old suspect with terrorism, hate crime, and attempted murder in an unprovoked attack on a Jewish man. The incident occurred near a student center, but no hate crime was mentioned in the police statement. The Chicago Commission on Human Relations reported 50 anti-Jewish hate crimes in 2024 compared to 2023. California Governor Gavin Newsom announced on Thursday that he will convene a special session of the legislature in response to Donald Trump winning the U.S. presidential election, which Newsom said threatened his state's values. In a proclamation, Newsom, a Democrat, said he expected Trump, a Republican, to pursue unconstitutional and unlawful federal policies that would harm Californians or conflicts with state law in such areas as reproductive health and climate change. Newsom said the California legislature must meet on December 2nd to consider increasing funding to the state's Department of Justice so it can challenge such policies in court. After 4 years away from the White House, Trump is due to be sworn in as president on January 20, 2025. A spokesperson for Trump's election campaign did not respond to questions about California's proclamation. "The freedoms we hold there in California are under attack and we won't sit idle," Newsom said in a statement. "We are prepared and we will do everything necessary to ensure Californians have the support and resources they need to thrive." Trump has frequently used intimidating rhetoric against those he perceives as his political enemies. California has long been a reliable Democratic state, and its voters went with Trump's rival, U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, in Tuesday's election. In his victory speech early on Wednesday morning, Trump promised unity. "Every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family and your future," he said. But many Democrats do not believe him. Newsom said that in Trump's previous term, from 2017 to 2021, California filed more than 120 lawsuits challenging the Trump administration's policies. Based on Trump's previous time in office and statements Trump made during his 2024 election campaign, Newsom said he expected to see additional restrictions on reproductive health care, the undergoing of policies designed to mitigate climate change, and withholding of disaster relief funding and grants as a form of political retribution. Newsom also said Trump policies may harm immigrant families. Donald Trump's U.S. presidential election victory has sent shockwaves through Black American communities, which voted overwhelmingly for Democratic candidate Kamala Harris, despite a campaign by a Republican rival to cut black men. While Trump made gains among Black Americans in North Carolina and some in the community celebrated his win, nationally his vote share among black voters was unchanged in the Tuesday's vote from 2020, according to an exit poll conducted by Edison Research, which showed a much larger swing towards Trump among Hispanic voters. Black voters were important to President Joe Biden's victory over Trump in 2020, when Harris was also elected as the first Black and first Asian American U.S. Vice President. Had she won on Tuesday, Harris would have become the United States' first woman president. A majority of the 24 Black Americans who spoke to newsmen for this story say they fear the second Trump term, including the rollback of civil rights after his pledge to end federal diversity and inclusion programs. Many said his rhetoric, including racist and sexist language, proved he does not have the best interests of Black Americans at heart. Mary Spencer, 72 years old, a retired nurse and educator in Oak Creek in Swing State, Wisconsin, was dismayed by Trump's victory. She said Trump's opinion of black people was condescending at an event with black journalists in July. Trump said immigrants were taking black jobs, reinforcing racist stereotypes about the kinds of work black Americans do. Trump denies he's racist. He says his economic agenda will lower taxes, housing costs, and boost job creation for all Americans, including black Americans. His campaign did not immediately respond to a request for comment. You're watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. Still ahead. Israel to collect soccer fans after anti-Semitic attacks. We'll be back after this break. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching the broadcast of the International News on Atlantic Television Network. Remember, we are open for adverts, placements, news and events coverage, personality, society and political interviews, product, service promotion and commercials. You can connect with us on all our Atn socials, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, Twitter at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. And now to the rest of our stories. Donald Trump's Republicans were rejected were projected to pick up another U.S. Senate seat on Thursday and appear to be retaining their narrow hold in the House of Representatives, putting them on track to control both chambers of Congress next year. Several media outlets projected that Republican Dave McCormick would defeat Democratic Senator Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, giving Trump's party at least 53 seats in the 100-seat chamber next year. That margin could climb as high as 55 seats if Republicans win close races in Arizona and Nevada, which will remain uncalled. In a battle for the House, Republicans were edging closer to victory after adding one seat to their 220-212 majority, though 25 races have yet to be called. Republicans had secured at least 211 seats, 7 short of a majority in the 435 seats chamber. Democrats would have to win 19 of the remaining uncalled races to take a House majority and maintain a toehold on power in Washington. The final House results may not be known for some time, as 11 of the outstanding races are in California, which typically takes several days to count ballots. With control of the Senate, Republicans will be in a position to confirm Trump's personnel and judicial appointments, though they will still be short of the 60 votes needed to quickly advance most legislation. If they control the House as well, they would be able to help Trump deliver on campaign promises like cutting taxes and dramatically restricting immigration. The other uncalled competitive Senate races are in Nevada, where incumbent Democrats Jackie Robinson led Republican challenger Sam Brown by just under 1 percentage point, with 94% of the estimated vote counted. And in Arizona, where Democrats Ruben Gallego was leading Republican Kari Lake by 1.7 percentage points, with 74% of the estimated vote counted. Cuban authorities say they had begun restoring power to the eastern half of the island on Thursday, a day after Hurricane Rafael knocked out the country's electrical grid, leaving 10 million people in the dark. The grid collapsed on Wednesday as Rafael tore across Cuba with top winds of more than 185 km per hour, damaging homes, uprooting trees, and toppling telephone poles. The hurricane had spun off westward into the Gulf of Mexico, where it no longer posed an immediate threat to land, the Miami-based U.S. National Hurricane Center said. Rafael was the latest blow to the communist-run country's already precarious electrical grid, which just 2 weeks ago collapsed multiple times, leaving many in the country without power for days, sparking scattered protests across the island. The Energy and Mines Ministry said on Thursday afternoon it was making progress restoring power to pockets of central and eastern Cuba, but warned the process would be slower in western parts of the island, which were hardest hit by the storm. Havana, the capital city of 2 million, was still without power late in the day on Thursday, and authorities had not said when it would be restored. Cuba's oil-fired generation plants have collapsed due to a drop in oil imports from Venezuela, Russia, and Mexico. Hurricane Rafael hit the island in less than a month, causing a crisis in the country's resources. Over 220,000 people have evacuated and most returned to their homes. Officials reopened Havana's airports, but schools will remain closed until Monday. The storm increased strength in less than 24 hours. Prosecutors in Argentina have charged 3 people in connection with the death of former One Direction singer Liam Payne, officials said on Thursday. Payne, 31 years old, died on October 16th when he fell from a balcony of the Casa Sol Palamo Hotel in Buenos Aires. One person who authorities say spent time with Payne every day while he was in Buenos Aires is charged with abandonment of a person followed by death, a charge that carries a sentence of 5 to 15 years in prison, according to a news release from Argentina's National Criminal and Correctional Prosecutor's Office released on Thursday. The other 2 charged are accused of supplying Payne with drugs, including cocaine, and have been charged with 2 acts each of supplying narcotics. Officials did not say what the sentence for those charges could be. One of the people charged with supplying narcotics is a hotel employee. The prosecutor's office said the 3 people charged have been notified of the charges. The prosecutor's office said and have been prohibited from leaving the country. None of the suspects were identified by name. The release also stated that Spain died from a fall and had not jumped from the balcony. Officials had not previously confirmed which version of events had happened, but the prosecutor's office said that Spain was likely not fully conscious or was experiencing a state of noticeably decrease or loss of consciousness at the time of the fall. The investigation included 9 raids in homes in the region and dozens of interviews with hotel staff, Payne's family and friends, and experts in the fields of medicine, biochemistry, and psychiatry, the prosecutor's office said. Investigators also reviewed more than 800 hours of video footage from the hotel and public roads and conducted a forensic analysis of Payne's cell phone to review his digital footprint in the period leading up to his death. Authorities in Guerrero, one of Mexico's most violent states, say that on Thursday appears to be another grisly homicide weeks after the city's mayor was murdered and decapitated. The bodies were 9 men and 2 women, with 2 minors among the deaths, and their identities were still unknown, the office of Guerrero's Attorney General said in a statement. A citizen had reported an abandonment van to authorities on Wednesday night, leading them to find the bodies. The killings were being investigated as homicides, the statement said. In October, the mayor of Chilpancingo, 43-year-old Alejandro Arcos, was killed 6 days after taking office. Photos depicting his decapitated head on the roof of his pickup truck circulated in local media and on WhatsApp, shocking the country and presenting one of the first major challenges to new President Claudia Sheinbaum's pledge to reduce violent crime. Sheinbaum, who presented her security plan days after Arcos' killing, said she will continue to offer social support for young people as alternatives to organized crime, an approach also used by her mentor, former President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. She also aims to improve intelligence sharing and coordination among government organizations and a beefed-up National Guard. There have been 2,638 homicides in Mexico since Sheinbaum was sworn into office on October 1st, according to poster to research analysis of government data. Thailand is pursuing new digital policies to handle emerging security threats, including the impacts of U.S.-China rivalry on the economy and technology, its Prime Minister said on Friday. We will accelerate policies so that the digital economy makes up the country's National Defense College, adding that these would also enhance cybersecurity. The government is supporting the use of artificial intelligence to strengthen the agricultural sector and increase exports to China, she added. Thailand stands to benefit from a potential trade war through relocation of investments from China and more exports to the United States. Commerce Minister Pichai Narifatham has said previously. Global tech companies have also been ramping up investment into Southeast Asia, particularly in Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore and Thailand, as they vie for a greater presence in the region of 670 million, including a growing young and tech-savvy population. Thailand has drawn in billions of dollars of investment in the tech sector, including a regional data center for Microsoft and a $1 billion investment from Google in a data center and cloud infrastructure. The cloud computing unit of Amazon.com has said it would invest $5 billion in Thailand over 15 years. There are no winners in tariff or trade wars, nor in wars over science and technology or industry, said China's top envoy to the United States, as Donald Trump's presidential election win raised the specter of another bruising confrontation with China. Xi Feng, China's ambassador to the United States, said differences between the two nations should be the driving force for exchanges and mutual learning rather than an excuse for rejection and confrontation, and that the successes of each were opportunities for the other. Speaking at a dinner hosted by the U.S.-China Business Council in Shanghai on Thursday, Xi did not directly address the U.S. election or Trump, who previously heaped tariffs on billions of dollars of Chinese goods before agreeing to a truce in January 2020. In 2019, China's economy grew a revised 6.0%, the weakest in nearly 30 years. Weighed down by trade war with the U.S., the economy has further cooled since, with the government targeting a modest expansion of around 5.0% in 2024, putting it on the back foot if there are fresh trade frictions after Trump takes office in January. The Republican has vowed to adopt blanket 60% tariffs on U.S. imports of Chinese goods compared with a 7.5% to 25% levied in his first term. Reminding the United States of the presence of U.S. companies, Xi said about 60% of the new stores opened by McDonald's car in the past year were in China, while Shanghai is the only major city in the world with more than 100 Starbucks cafes. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's economic and policies could further weaken the yen's value against the U.S. dollar. The head of an opposition party that Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba needs to stay in power said on Friday. The potential increase in tariffs or tax costs could lead to inflation in the U.S. and therefore higher interest rates, Yurichiro Tamaki, leader of the Democratic Party for the People (DPP), said at a press conference on Friday. Following Japan's general election on October 27, Tamaki's party, which has 28 lower house members, has gained influence over the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, which lost its majority in the chamber. Any increase in prices in Japan resulting from higher import costs could squeeze households in Japan and further undermine public support for Ishiba. Tamaki says that the Bank of Japan (BOJ) should refrain from raising interest rates until wage growth was consistently outpacing inflation. Domestic policies should be conducted for domestic objectives, he said. The BOJ ended negative interest rates in March and raised short-term rates to 0.25% in July. China summoned the Philippines ambassador on Friday to express its objection to two new laws in the Southeast Asian nation asserting maritime rights and sovereignty over disputed areas of the South China Sea, its foreign ministry said. China made solemn representations to the ambassador shortly after Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed the Maritime Zones Act and the Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act into law to strengthen his country's maritime claims and bolster its territorial integrity. The Maritime Zones law illegally includes most of China's Hongqiang Island and Nansha Islands and related maritime areas in the Philippines' maritime zones. Beijing's foreign ministry spokesperson Mo Ning said, using the Chinese names for Scarborough, Shoal and Spratly Islands respectively. Beijing has rejected the 2016 ruling by the Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration, which said its expansive maritime claims over the South China Sea had no legal basis in a case that was brought by Manila. The United States, a Philippine ally, backs the court's ruling. Marcos said the two laws he signed, which define maritime entitlements and sets designated sea lanes and air routes, were a demonstration of the commitment to uphold the international rules-based order and protect Manila's right to exploit resources peacefully in its exclusive economic zone. Our people, especially our fisherfolk, should be able to pursue their livelihood free from uncertainty and harassment, Marcos said. We must be able to harness mineral and energy resources in our seabed, but Beijing said the laws were a serious infringement of its claim over the contested areas. China urges the Philippine aid side to effectively respect China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests, to immediately stop taking any unilateral actions that may lead to the widening of the dispute and complicates the situation. Germany's main opposition leader, Friedrich Merz, criticized Chancellor Olaf Scholz on Friday as irresponsible for delaying early elections, as an opinion poll also showed voters in favor of an early vote to pull the country out of political crisis. Europe's largest economy was thrown into disarray this week with the collapse of Scholz's three-way coalition and disagreements over how much money the government should spend to spur growth and support Ukraine. This comes as a tough time for Germany as its economy faces a second year of contraction. Its companies fear loss of competitiveness while foreign policy challenges mount, from the re-election of Donald Trump to a tariff war with China. Scholz has suggested holding a confidence vote in his government in January, paving the way for snap elections in March, but Merz wants elections to be held in January. Along with the vast majority of the German electorate, I believe it is irresponsible, to handle this in such a way that it becomes a mere delay, with party political motives obviously taking center stage, said Merz, the leader of the Christian Democrats CDU, according to one opinion poll. The ZDF Politz barometer, a majority of Germans also want an election as soon as possible. Some 84% think an earlier election is a good idea, while 13% do not, it said on Friday. Videos circulating on social media showed riots policing intervening in street clashes, with some attackers shouting anti-Israeli slurs. Amsterdam Mayor Femke Halsema said Maccabi Tel Aviv supporters were attacked, abused and pelted with fireworks. And that's riots police had to intervene several times to protect them and escort them to hotels. Anti-Semitic incidents in the Netherlands have surged since Israel launched its assault in Gaza following the October 7, 2023 attacks in Israel by the Palestinian Hamas group, with many Jewish organizations and schools reporting threats and hate mail. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said the order to send planes was taken after a very violent incident targeting Israeli citizens after the march between Maccabi and Ajax Amsterdam, traditionally identified as a Jewish club. An eyewitness captured a video verified by a newsman showing a group of men running near Amsterdam Central Station, chasing and assaulting other men as police sirens sounded. Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof said he was horrified by the anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli citizens, which he called completely unacceptable. Schoof assured Netanyahu by phone that the perpetrators will be identified and prosecuted. He said in a statement on the social media platform X, anti-Muslim politician Geert Wilders, head of the largest party in the Dutch government, said he was ashamed that this can happen in the Netherlands. Police said 57 suspects had been detained after the game as pro-Palestinian demonstrators tried to reach the Johan Cruyff Arena, even though the city had forbidden a protest there. In March, the opening of a new Holocaust museum in Amsterdam by Herzog led to violent protests by pro-Palestinian activists. Over 43,000 Palestinians have been killed and 102,000 others injured in Israel's military offensive on Gaza in response to the Hamas attack, according to health officials in the enclave. After the Palestinian militant group killed 1,200 Israelis and took more than 250 hostage, according to Israel. Amsterdam officials were due to hold a press conference at noon. And that's the size of the package on the international news for today. Before we go, let's take a look at the major stories making the headlines. Police fire tear gas at protesters in Maputo. Mysterious